Yeah, I have to do my own hair and makeup now, which is why I look like a mid-'80s coke dealer from South Beach, Miami. If you need anything, call me later. But enough about me. I worry about you out there, what you're doing, if you're all right. Because it's getting weird, but that's okay. We can hold this country together with or without the media's help. And believe me, they aren't helping much, if at all. But the good news, at least we can unite together over one thing, that this flaming jackass sucks.
It seems that Republicans now are making the argument, let the World War II vets die, let the Korean War vets die, let the Vietnam vets die, let everybody in that generation die, because we're worried about Boeing. It is the born, it is the weakest among us, it is senior citizens who they're ready to euthanize because they want Boeing's corporate earnings to not dip too low.
You know, I'm not allowed to swear because we don't have a lot of editors tonight. But anyway, when President Trump expresses an adult concern about flattening a curve without thoroughly devastating an economy, this preening bucket of farts accuses Republicans of killing vets. It's probably pointless to say how useless Joe is. But in this crisis, he has nothing but the monotony of his own voice, which drips with thirsty bile. And his cohort isn't much better. But he wasn't the only idiot saying Trump wants people dead.
He's a fan of money first, mortality second. It's the greatest generation. They're going to be sacrificed. For what? Fear that Trump's efforts to be president will be hurt?
He's going too fast, causing confusion, and quite possibly endangering lives in the process.
Stay in, and for the president to make light of that as if it's like, well, so what? Some people will die, but the economy will grow. No.
The president who's eager to try to get the economy back on track because he sees it as wedded to his chances of being reelected.
The president is putting human life at risk. It's literally immoral.
I haven't seen that many dumbbells since they closed my gym. The media delights in only having two sides to an issue. That way they can count them on one claw. It's the prison of two ideas. Either you want the economy to return or people to die. Which leads this ace reporter to ask this question at a briefing.
How many deaths are acceptable?
Yeah. How many? None. Okay. How many deaths are acceptable to me? And none.
That is what smart people would call an idiotic question. But consider the source. It's exactly the kind of question you'd expect from a media who sees themselves as the protagonist in every issue, and you, always the bad guy. But don't for a minute think that I am downplaying the potential of this pandemic. It was 2 months ago to this day that I said this on The Five. McDonald's is closing stores in China, Tibet's closing their border in traffic, infections are doubling like every 6 days, and we're sitting here and we're like, well, you know what, it's not the flu. So, well, you know what, it's in the early stages. The scientists that are mapping this virus are super worried, right? They're watching these epicenters spread into all over mainland China, and why is that? Because of the transit links. Transportation. It is all about where people are going these days, and it's coming here unless you stop it. So I do think we should consider a temporary travel ban, because if we're telling citizens not to go there, why are we telling them they can't come here? I don't understand. Doesn't that seem like a stupid suggestion? January 28th. So what was today's concerned media saying back then? I can say safely nothing. They were still gagging over impeachment. So now this funhouse media mirror has networks justifying not carrying their daily coronavirus briefings because, you know, Trump happens to be in them. He is president, but since he's not their guy, it's not that important. So what is? Did you hear Meghan won't let Prince Harry visit his dad? Yeah, CNN covered that, as they whine about having to cover an emergency briefing. But so many things don't fit inside the media's narrative. For example, they see no importance in finding out the specific names of those special creeps who slipped elitist crap into the relief package. Why? Doesn't help their cause. They haven't yet bothered to investigate how the Chinese covered up their outbreak, causing a delay in information that cost lives. Instead, the press lauded the Chinese for their quick government response. The media happily confused a potentially life-saving drug with a toxic chemical used in fish tanks. They all tweeted about it, giddy at the thought that Trump touting a drug actually used by doctors might have killed some guy who swallowed poison because he was careless. But that story was false. The guy didn't take the drug Trump touted. He took fish tank cleaner. So why all these mistakes? Because they're too distracted, trying to gin up a rift between Fauci and Trump.
Where is Dr. Fauci today? Where is Dr. Fauci right now? Why is he not this briefing? Will he attend future ones?
I was just with him for a long time.
You know, maybe it's me, but I'm starting to think the media has its collective heads up their collective asses, and it's all fueled by bias. So they'll push a fantasy rift that could harm the country rather than see the obvious. It's two guys seeking the same outcome. That's how it works. You cooperate and play well with others. Meanwhile, the public approves the handling of this once-in-a-lifetime crisis, perhaps because they're smarter than the journalists who love to deceive them. The public understands that you weigh costs and benefits with every decision, and that sooner or later, we will go back to work, even when some risk is present, because you can't eliminate it entirely. But there will be groups of people in some places who can go back to work while others won't. The economy will reboot in phases. Trump gets that, and so do you. But the media can't, because if they did, they wouldn't be able to yell, "But people will die!" It's so fundamentally stupid, it's right up Alec Baldwin's alley.
Listen, okay, everybody knows that people are going to die, okay? Some people have died. That just is accepted, okay? As long as I don't die and you don't die, my fellow Republican contributors, we should get the country back to work.
And let me ask you one last question, President Trump. Are you doing a great job?
I would give myself a 10 out of 10.
Wow, pretty edgy material there. So, lucky for the media, they may get their apocalypse. 3.28 million filed for unemployment last week, the highest number since we started tracking it in 1967. That's the cost of the shutdown. Adults know this and realize that the jobs will come back, but it can't go on forever. Because the price of unemployment isn't just financial, it leads to psychological, emotional, and then physical consequences. That's why it's an adult problem. You need to fight a pandemic without creating permanent damage. Of course, the media will report on these job numbers as if it was Trump's fault, and as if they knew it was coming, and were warning about it, forgetting that it was Trump who was on it before they were. Just like how they forget who was first concerned about China way back when. Oh yeah, that was Trump too. And again, what occupied the media's time as this pandemic first spread? Yeah, while the disease was bubbling up, they were frothing over impeachment hearings. But what if they hadn't? What if they'd been looking out for you? Would they have seen this crisis coming? Look, I got no doubt we will exit this dark period stronger and better than before. Jobs will return, the economy will roar back, the truth will come out, and we will have saved many lives. And the only sickness that lingers, the one that seems impervious to drugs, is the media's own incurable bias. Best to keep your distance permanently.
Period.